Hello everyone, welcome to Emergency Management Associates, coming to you from the Area Command, 392 miles west of Kitty Hawk Beach, North Carolina. We want to welcome everybody to our program tonight. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. We really do. We have a ton of things to talk about. I want to welcome Alan Newton to our show tonight. He was the first one in our chat tonight. Demon Catman from the east of England is here. Welcome, Dane. Appreciate you. Richard Smith is here from Nova Scotia. June Lowe is here, excited that she got here. June Love, I should say, not Lowe. June Love is here. She got here on the live stream. We appreciate you being here. Berlinda Mustafa is here. Sleeping Volcano, Pam Miller, Heidi Petrick is here. Arnold Schmidt is here again. Welcome, Arnold. Appreciate you, brother. Linda Moses is here from Utah. Welcome. Tinny Pearl's here. See you too. Thank you so much, Tin. We appreciate you. We appreciate everybody who has joined us here on the Emergency Management Associates program. I was hoping to see Don Patoka here, but hopefully he'll come in here very shortly. We don't always get notified when we come on the air. Some of you don't, some of you do. YouTube does not always notify everybody. I'm going to tell you that right now. We've also had quite a few people unsubscribe from our program. We now have 6,000 plus people that are subscribed to our program. No, I'm sorry, not that. We have 5,700 people that are subscribed to our program. Actually, 5,704, I believe it is. We've had several people unsubscribe today. Since last night, unsubscribe. That means YouTube's doing all of you a disservice. Please, folks, make sure you check your subscriptions. Make sure you're still subscribed to this program. And if you're not, and 25% of the people that watch this program are not subscribed to this program, unfortunately. If you're not subscribed to this program, please subscribe. We want you to know when we come on the show tonight, or on the show anytime. And if you want to subscribe, you also need to hit that notification bell. There's a little tiny notification bell there, and you need to click on that. When you click on that little bell, you need to click on the word ALL. A drop-down menu will come up with, after you click on the bell, click on the word ALL. All. That will mean you get notified whenever we come on the air. Now, we come on the air at odd times as well. Usually we try to come on the air between 6 and 7 p.m. Monday through Friday Eastern Time. Sometimes we come on after 7 o'clock. That's because we're researching information that we just got our hands on. I do not put any information out on this program that is not vetted. I want you to know that. I do not put out any information on the air that we cannot vet. It has to be vetted. I want to make sure we put out honest, clean information. Some channels do not do that. Some channels go on the air and they really don't care what they talk about. They really don't care. They just go on the air and put out information whether or not it's true. You'll never hear a lie out of my mouth on the air. Never. Not going to happen. So please, folks, click on that subscription button. Make sure you're subscribed to this program. And also click on that notification bell. And when that drop-down menu comes up, click on the word ALL. That should get you notified when we come on the air. But, again, YouTube does not always notify everybody. They just don't do that, unfortunately. They lie to people. They do all sorts of nasties to people, including unsubscribe. Some of you may have been unsubscribed, some of you not. Don Patoka, one of our mods, since the very beginning of this show, 5.5 years ago, he gets unsubscribed sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. Sad. Unreal. Tinny Pearl just gave us a $20 super chat. We definitely appreciate that. Thank you ever so much. And as a result of you giving us a super chat, I'm going to pin a Emergency Management Associates sticker on your super chat. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Also, I'm going to give you a thumbs up on that super chat as well. We appreciate that. Your super chats, your donations to our PayPal locations or our Venmo location, or even to our hard address here in Morganton, North Carolina, mean the world to us. Your donations help keep this channel on the air. They really do. It takes money to operate a channel like this. It takes money, unfortunately. When I first started on the air 5.5 years ago, I did not understand that. I had to get higher and higher bandwidth over the years, and now I'm getting the highest bandwidth possible because YouTube keeps pulling things on us, keeps pulling tricks. We need to have the bandwidth necessary to stay on the air. So we have the highest bandwidth, and it comes with a price. I'm paying $240 a month. $240 a month just for bandwidth. That doesn't include electricity. That does not include phone bills. That is just bandwidth. Nothing but bandwidth. So, folks, we really appreciate what you do to help us stay on the air. Sleeping Volcano says she keeps getting buffered badly. I'm so sorry, Sleeping Volcano. We appreciate you being here. God bless you for that. We have our dear friend and mod, Hurricane Heather, here as well. Thank you so much for being here, Heather. God bless you. Sleeping Volcano is one of our mods and a very dear friend of ours as well. Richard Smith is a mod here. We appreciate him. Now, I want to give some appreciation here as well. A couple things here before we get going here. One of our mods, Rob52, his wife Michelle's birthday is today. Now, she doesn't want anybody to know how young she is. But I'm going to tell you this. I have claimed her as 39 years old. I hope she got a kick out of my post on her Facebook page earlier today. Rob's wife, Michelle, is 39 years old. Happy birthday to Michelle. She's a great lady. She keeps Rob52 in line. She keeps both of us in line. Rob52, just like many of you when you get on the phone with me, we talk for a long time. Rob52 and I talk forever, it seems. Don Patoka and I talk forever. Even there have been times when Hurricane Heather and I have been on the air, we've talked for a time too. And even Sleeping Volcano. I appreciate you guys, I really do. You guys make my life. You make my day. I love and appreciate all of you. I've even talked to Aubrey sometimes. I appreciate that. Anyway, I want to say happy birthday to Michelle. She's a wonderful lady. I also want to tell you we got a card on Monday that I forgot to tell you about. Beautiful cat. I love animals. I used to have a cat similar to this one. I love these cats. I really do. My cat was named Rocky. She passed away about, I want to say, 2003, something like that. She had cancer, I think it was in her kidneys or something, and could not anymore go into her litter box at all. And she couldn't hardly move when I took her to the vet. And when we took her to the vet and put her down, I hugged her and kissed her and loved on her. And then she passed away and went over the Rainbow Bridge. I love our animals. Our animals were our best friends and are still. Yes, I get a little bit choked up. Let me tell you about Rocky just for a second. We had Rocky for about 17 years. Rocky knew my schedule for work. She knew when I had to get up in the mornings. She knew when I had to go to church in the mornings. She knew when I needed to go to sleep because she tapped me on the head and she used to lay on the back of the couch right behind me and tap me on the head saying, "Dad, it's time to go to sleep." When I needed to get up in the morning, she was there tapping on my eyelids, telling me, "Dad, it's time for you to get up." It was wonderful. This cat knew me very, very well. It was unreal. And so when I had to put her down, I thanked her for everything she did. She was a great kitty. She was a great friend. She was a great daughter. I loved her. Terry Close, this time I'm going to let this comment go on the chat. I want you guys to be talking about what I'm talking about. If you cannot talk about what we're talking about on the air, do not bother commenting, because your comment will go away. Your comment will be removed from the chat. I'm just promising you that right now. Yes, I love Jesus Christ, but we're not talking about Jesus Christ right now. We're going to be talking about earthquakes worldwide. We're also going to be talking about Cascadia tonight. We're going to be talking significantly about earthquakes in Southern California. Okay? Then if there's any other time left over, I will be making some comments about some other things. So please, guys, please keep your comments in line with what I'm talking about. I'd appreciate that. Rich's YouTube channel is here as well. Thank you so much. We appreciate you here. God bless you. Anyway, I told you about this card that I got. Heidi Patrick just gave us another $5 super chat. God bless you, Heidi. Heidi is a very dear friend of ours and a dear friend with the programs. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for your donation super chat. Anyway, this card came from Sue in South Carolina. Sue sent us this card saying, please accept this small donation to your channel on YouTube. I watch almost every broadcast and I've learned a lot from you. As a former Oregonian living in the southeast South Carolina, I am particularly interested in your earthquake and volcano reports. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Sue. Sue, thank you so much for that donation as well. We appreciate you. And again, your card and letter here are very important to us. I have, like I've told you guys before, every card and letter goes into a file right next to my desk, and when that file gets full, it goes into my closet here in my office, and then I start a new file. But I love each and every one of you guys. I love your cards. I love your letters. It means a lot to me. Several cards that are on my wall behind me, I've kept here. You see that EMA? Well, it's right over the shoulder right here. See this EMA placard here? This was made by someone named Sandy from San Francisco. Seashells and license plates. License plate cut in part and put together with my EMA logo here, and also seashells around it. I love that very much. That picture of Christ I got from someone else. I appreciate that as well. I've got a horse picture right here behind me from Laura, my friend Laura from Oregon. I've got some other pictures from her and her husband on my wall as well. I've got a picture here, right over here, from my credit union. It's a calendar. I love that. It's a waterfall here in North Carolina. There are many waterfalls here in North Carolina that are really cool, and I visited some of those. I've got several things here from different people. You'll notice over here behind me, right there, a lady friend drew this photo of me. At the time, I had worn glasses. For 6 or 7 years, I didn't wear glasses. But she drew this picture of me, and it looked like me. And what you don't see behind my American flag is a tornado. On my business cards and some of my other logos, you'll see a tornado. My brother's daughter had a painting done of her with a tornado in the background and a fire behind her as well. That I got permission from the artist and from my niece to use that as my logo for my business here. I love all of you. I really do. I love everything that you do for me. I love my niece. I love the artist that painted the picture of her that I've been able to use as part of my logo for many, many years now. I appreciate your cards and letters. I appreciate your phone calls. I appreciate your friendship as family. I really do. That means a lot to me. Linda Moses is here from Utah. Welcome, Linda. Appreciate you. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate and love each and every one of you. You mean the world to me. You really do. Anyway, let's get on with this program tonight. This program tonight is very much about emergency preparedness. I want you to know that. The first thing I want to talk about is something that I didn't talk about 2 nights ago. 2 days ago, on August 27th, there was a 4.3 moderate earthquake over in Florida. A 4.3 moderate earthquake over here in Florida. Now, the interesting thing about this, there are no earthquake faults in Florida, nowhere near this location. The closest town to this earthquake may have been Fort Lauderdale. Now, this was a 4.3 earthquake. USGS is saying that there were only 4 felt reports. Really? 4 felt reports. The small towns around here also have populations of 17, 10,000, 14,000, 18,000, and even 30 and 40,000. The closest is Fort Lauderdale with 118,000 people. It's interesting to me that USGS would say there's only 4 felt reports. There were a lot more felt reports than that. It's interesting to me that this earthquake got a lot of attention and yet no felt reports. Relatively few felt reports. This is a joke. This is really a joke. Okay? It's unreal. Fort Lauderdale with 180,000, not 118, 180,000 people, and there's only 4 felt reports. Okay? That was only 80 kilometers away from this earthquake, 55 miles away from this earthquake, and yet only 4 felt reports. A lot of towns around here, yes, they did feel it. They did feel it. Berlinda's asking where it was. It was over near this lake. I don't remember what the name of this lake is off the top of my head. Just a second. I think I have record of what this lake is. No, in fact, I don't remember what it is, and it's Okeechobee. Lake Okeechobee. That's what it was. Lake Okeechobee. Unreal. But that's a big lake too. A lot of people live around that lake. Small towns all around it. And they have piers for fishing. A lot of people use it, and yet nobody felt that quake. Bullcrap. Bullcrap. They say there's no faults around that area. What I think this was, there's 2 things I think it may have been. Okay? Number 1, there are sinkholes all over Florida. There are sinkholes all over Florida. And when those sinkholes go, that may create earth movement. It does create earth movement. There's something else as well. We've all talked about, and this has been going on for years now, we've been talking about the Mid-Atlantic Fault Zone. The Mid-Atlantic Fault Zone. That Mid-Atlantic Fault Zone is pushing North America, Canada, the United States, and northern Mexico in a south-southwesterly direction. In a south-southwesterly direction. That may have been putting pressure on Florida as well. And if that's the case, that may have been why this earthquake hit. This is on the peninsula of Florida. Now, the peninsula of Florida has a lot of value here. The peninsula of Florida is very volatile. You're putting pressure on the peninsula of Florida and it could break. I believe it could break off from mainland United States. It remains to be seen what if that will happen at all. But I'm just saying that. Okay? I'm just saying that. Belinda Mustafa says she's not too far north from Kissimmee, Florida. I've been in Kissimmee. It's a great place. Thank you for bringing us to that attention. I appreciate it. But anyway, that's what's going on there, okay? Richest richest channel in YouTube is saying, do you think oil drilling, removing oil from the earth, causes sinkholes and or landslides? Yes. I don't think it causes landslides necessarily, but sinkholes, yes. Okay? It also causes earthquakes. As we flush water down into the hole where we're drawing oil and gas out of, that oil causes, or that water that we're injecting into the earth causes earthquakes as well. Okay? And that seismic energy that's also pushing from the coast of California, Oregon, and Washington is also putting great pressure all the way across the North American continent. Also, there's pressure in Canada, on the west coast of Canada. Why? The Cascadia megathrust earthquake is building. The seismic energy off the west coast of North America is huge, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. We've got a new report that came out, and I want to give you that information. It's very valuable, and when we're as to what we're doing here, talking about the Cascadia earthquake that's going to happen. It's very likely it's going to be imminent. The scientists with this report said it was imminent. They used the word imminent. Okay? Not 5 years, not 25 years, not 50 years, as some scientists have previously said it was. They said the Cascadia megathrust earthquake was imminent. I want to make that point perfectly clear here. Now, let's leave Florida right now. I've got something else to talk to you about here. I want to talk to you about what happened in Nicaragua last night. A lot of movement down there, okay? It happened. Big time movement off of the coast of El Salvador. Now, I did some checking. I did a lot of checking. Now, in my checking, I found that there were a lot more earthquakes than USGS had said there was over off the coast of Central America and Mexico. USGS is not showing any earthquakes whatsoever off the coast of Central America or even off the coast of Mexico. They're showing very little information at all, nothing when it comes to Mexico or even Central America. But the fact of the matter is, there is a lot more information here than they're telling us about. Okay? I want to show you what's going on. Okay? This is important. Look at all the earthquakes here in Central America here. What does that one circle say? 50 plus earthquakes. 50 plus earthquakes. As a result of that 6.1 earthquake, just barely off the coast of Nicaragua or El Salvador and Nicaragua, there are 75 earthquakes here in the Central America area. 75 earthquakes. I counted each and every one of them. Some of those earthquakes as little as a 2.5 minor earthquake. Most of those earthquakes are 3.5, 3.7, 4.2, 4.5 earthquakes. Most of those. That was a big earthquake over here in Central America yesterday. That was a big earthquake, a 6.1 off the coast of El Salvador. Look at that earthquake fault just off the coast of El Salvador there. That is the Cocos Plate. That's a tectonic plate. It's not just a fault, it's a tectonic plate. That's why we got that 6.1 over here off the coast of El Salvador yesterday. A lot of earthquakes. Now, we're showing 3 earthquakes in Costa Rica. 3 earthquakes in Costa Rica, well actually 2 earthquakes in Costa Rica, it's saying here, and 1 over here in south of Panama. South of Panama. This is a 3.9, 4.0 earthquake south of Panama today. We go north. Costa Rica. This is a 3.4 earthquake here. Over on Costa Rica, on the land, we have a 2.44 there. A 2.44. Then, out in the Caribbean Sea. In the Caribbean Sea, we have another earthquake here. This is a 4.65. A 4.65. Now notice where it's at. Notice where it's at. Let me try to zoom in here so I can give you a better idea of what's happening. You can see under seamounts here. What are under seamounts? Volcanoes. There are volcanoes all over the sea here in the Caribbean Sea and also in the Gulf of Mexico. In the Gulf of Mexico, there's an active volcano, and it has erupted on several occasions. That is one of the reasons that we are getting warm water in the Gulf of Mexico. That's one of the reasons we have really warm water in the Gulf of Mexico, because of that volcano. It is heating up the Gulf of Mexico. We have temperatures of water in the Gulf of Mexico of 85 to 90 degrees sometimes. That's really hot. That's very hot. Okay? But that's what's going on over here just east of Central America. And not just that. Not just that. Let's go over here to Haiti. Haiti had an earthquake here today. This was a 3.4 earthquake. This was a 3.4 earthquake over here in Haiti. Let's go even more eastward over to Puerto Rico. 3 earthquakes over here in southwestern Puerto Rico here. 3 earthquakes there. One of them is a 2.1 near, well, it's south-southeast of Maria Antonia, Puerto Rico. That's a 2.1 earthquake. We go further west, 2 more earthquakes. One is a 3.02 and one, actually there's 3 more earthquakes here. One is actually 4. I just realized there's 4 earthquakes here. There were only 3 earthquakes here earlier today when I first looked at this. Now there's a total of 5. But there's 3 earthquakes right together. Okay? One is a 4.26. That's a moderate earthquake, a 4.26 there. The next one right next to it is a 3.0. A 3.0. The last earthquake here is a 2.8. That's a 2.8 right there. 3 earthquakes back to back to back. Why is that? Because this earthquake that was a 4 is a big earthquake. It's a big earthquake. It's a 4.26 moderate earthquake. Okay? That's why we have the other 2 earthquakes. Those other 2 earthquakes are aftershocks. They're aftershocks. Then, La Porguera. La Porguera. We have numerous earthquakes there off and on, literally every month. Every month. This is a 2.7 earthquake here. Why are we getting earthquakes in southwestern Puerto Rico? For those of you that have not been with this program for as long as we've been on the air, I want to go back to 2019. December 26th, one day after Christmas. One day after Christmas. It's sad to say. We have an organization, not just here in the United States, but literally all over the world. That organization I do not want you to put in the chat. I don't want to be taken down, so I'm not going to say this organization name on the air. This organization right here lit up their radio array, antenna array in Norway, in Russia, and northwestern Australia. They triangulated Puerto Rico. They triangulated Puerto Rico. On December 26th, there was an 8.0 earthquake. An 8.0 earthquake. Major earthquake. A lot of damage. A lot of damage. And that wasn't enough. It devastated homes. It destroyed homes. It destroyed buildings and businesses all over southwestern Puerto Rico. It shook the entire island. But that was not good enough for that organization. 2 days later, on December 28th, they lit it up again. That second earthquake was an 8.4 earthquake. A major 8.4 earthquake. That is why we're having earthquakes in southwestern Puerto Rico. The ground is still shaking there. This 4.26 that we had today over there in Puerto Rico is the largest earthquake we've had there in quite a long time. Quite a long time. Now, since that happened, we're going to keep a close eye on that area of Puerto Rico. Okay? I don't believe they've been opening up any more antenna arrays focusing on other areas. Okay, I don't believe they're doing that. However, there's enough information out there that points to those arrays being lit up for various reasons, including weather modification. That does happen. Arnold Smith says here in the chat, weather modification technology at its finest. You're absolutely right. The big storms that we see coming out of the Gulf of Alaska sometimes, I believe, have been modified by the antenna array up there in Alaska. Yes, over there in southwestern Alaska, they've lit up many times. They have an antenna array just outside Willow, Alaska. When they light that up, all kinds of things happen, including earthquakes. Okay? Linda Moses says her little grandchild was in that quake. Everything glass broke in that house. Absolutely right. Now, I have a friend, Dominic, who is a police captain. I haven't heard from Dominic in some time. I'm going to have to call him. Dominic lives in Parguera, Puerto Rico. I have talked to him, video chatted with him on Messenger many, many times. One time there was an earthquake, and I thought it was a lot larger than he said it was. He said it was only a 3.5 earthquake, but I saw his blinds shaking just like this, pounding on the glass of his window and pounding on the wall. If that was a 3.5 earthquake, I would hate to be in a larger earthquake there in Parguera, Puerto Rico. That was incredible. It really was. I'm going to probably maybe call Dominic tomorrow morning and see how he's doing. But Dominic is a police captain over there in Puerto Rico with the Puerto Rican police force. He's a great man. There's a lot of great people living in Puerto Rico. I have one of my dear friends that lives over there in northern Puerto Rico. He and I were police officers together a long, long time ago, back in the late 80s into the early 90s. And he and I were partners at one time. We had a chance to talk about everything under the sun. We had dinners together. We did things as families together, all kinds of things. He lives in Puerto Rico now. He moved from San Diego to Puerto Rico about 10 or 12 years ago because his mother got ill, and right after his mother went ill, one of his brothers died, and he had to take over a family business. And he's been doing that, and he went to school. He could become a police officer again today, but I don't think he would do it. I don't think he would do it. Sam was a great man. I loved him. He was a great, great friend. Anyway, I want to just go over and talk to you about that. I'm very concerned about the earthquakes in Puerto Rico. I'm concerned about that 4.36 over in the Caribbean. I'm still concerned about that 6.1 off the coast of Nicaragua and El Salvador yesterday. I'm very concerned. Just so you know, besides the 75 earthquakes in Central America yesterday, there were 35 earthquakes in southern Mexico. 35 earthquakes in southern Mexico. 2 more over at Cozumel. There were 2 more over at what's it called? Over at the border, not the border, but the southern end of the Baja California. 2 more 2.5 and 2.6 earthquakes down there in the southern part of the Baja. It's incredible. That seismic energy is coming up from South America. It's going towards California. It's definitely going towards California. But before we go talk about California, I have some other things to talk about. Joseph Figueroa says, nothing fun when the ground shakes, yet we learn so much. I agree. We learn a lot. My reason I talk about earthquakes today, and I've been talking about it now for 5.5 years, is because people's lives are changed when major earthquakes happen. I've been in 5.5, 5.6, and 5.9 earthquakes in San Diego County. I used to live in San Diego for 29 years. I've been through at least 5 earthquakes. Okay? Wasn't fun. And then I went through an earthquake over Northridge. One of my police partners and I were called to go up to Northridge to help the police in Northridge after the great big huge 6.9 earthquake in Northridge. I became very cautious with those earthquakes. I felt the ground shake after that earthquake happened. I got to Northridge about 6 hours after the earthquake hit. I was amazed one night. The first night we were there, my partner and I set up camp. We pitched our tents right next to our police vehicle. In the middle of the night, another aftershock hit. It lifted me up. Well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it also lifted up my partner off the ground and dumped us back on the ground very heartily. That hurt. That was a big earthquake in the middle of the night. My partner and I could not go back to sleep. We took our gear from where we were camping, took our gear and placed it back in the patrol car, and we drove around the rest of the night and all day long the next day. That was incredible. That 6.9 earthquake earlier that day shook a lot of people. It damaged a lot of homes. It damaged businesses. It flattened apartment buildings. I saw there in Northridge an apartment building that literally pancaked on the cars beneath it. There was a small parking area underneath that building, and it pancaked on top of those cars and reduced those cars to rubble. Incredible. The restaurants, my partner and I would have loved to have gone to a restaurant that morning after the earthquake hit. But we were too afraid that if we got in that building, we wouldn't be getting out very easily. We did not want to take the chance of being crushed inside a building. There was one morning I remember ordering from Denny's. We ordered the food, we stayed parked in the parking lot, we gave the person that came out and delivered our food, our credit card, they processed it and let us go. I refused to go into that building or any other buildings at all. The ground was shaking almost relentlessly. I was there for a week. My partner and I shook all over the place. There were times we'd be driving down the road and the earth would shake and we would have to pull over because we couldn't drive and shake at the same time. Our police vehicles being shook all over the road. Incredible. Aubrey said she lived in Chula Vista, California when the one hit in 1970 or 71 Los Angeles. She felt the tremors in Chula Vista. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That happens. We felt some slight shaking from that 6.9 down in San Diego. And then when my partner and I were asked to go to Northridge, we said absolutely, let's go. So we packed our gear. We packed some 72-hour, or not 72-hour, well, yes, it was like a 72-hour kit with food and everything else. When we went to the police academy, we were told to have food ready to go if in case we were sent someplace and we couldn't get back for a while. We had our 72-hour kits with us. 3 days worth of food. 3 days worth of clothing. In this case, we didn't much get out of our police uniforms for 3 days. Yes, we changed our shirts. We had a change of shirts before we left for LA. But that's all. Our uniform shirts we wore. We wore jeans the rest of the time. Once our uniform pants got soiled, we used our jeans and put our badges on our shirts and put our gun belts on, and away we went. But that's how we lived for 3 days and the rest of the week that week. We lived with our 72-hour kits and fed ourselves. We also bought some food when we were there. It was very scary to work and live in an area with earthquakes going on. It was crazy. Linda Moses says they were in Palmdale when it happened. The aftershocks pancaked a lot of buildings. Oh yes, they did. I saw it. I even have some pictures in my files. Maybe one day I'll pull out the pictures. It's very interesting what I found. Anyway, guys, I appreciate all of you. Okay? We are going to talk about earthquakes in California in just a few minutes. Right now, I want to talk about earthquakes in the Cascadia subduction zone. I want to talk about Cascadia. I want to put up this map. In just a few minutes, I'll tell you what these colors mean on this map. This is a map of the Cascadia subduction zone. The red line on the left is the Cascadia subduction zone fault zone. The Cascadia subduction zone fault zone. It does not show the Juan de Fuca plate. And maybe I just ought to bring that up while I'm thinking about it. Because yes, I do have that as well. If you guys just bear with me while I bring up that map as well, I'll put it up so you can see it. Because there's a lot of information on that map as well. I've done a lot of soul searching when I put up this information. A ton of soul searching. I've studied earthquakes for a long time. A very, very, very long time. When I studied these earthquakes, and I've even been talking to you about them all, I've been very careful. I wanted to only show you information that I could prove. Only information that pertained to what was going on. I refuse and still refuse to show you any information that is not correct. I absolutely refuse to do that. Not going to happen. Not now, not ever. Not going to happen ever. I want to make sure that we give you the right information so when something does happen, you will understand what's going on. Okay? This is important. You need to know what's going on so you can be ready for whatever happens. You need to know what to do when an earthquake strikes. And yes, we are going to talk about earthquakes tonight. A lot of earthquakes tonight. Okay? Okay. This is one of the maps that I want to show you. Okay? On this particular map, you can see the Juan de Fuca plate. It's further out to sea from Washington and Oregon. the Juan de Fuca Plate. The Juan de Fuca Plate goes all the way up to the Queen Charlotte Island in British Columbia, Canada. The Cascadia subduction zone fault zone goes all the way to southern Queen Charlotte Island as well. While the Juan de Fuca Plate does not come as close to the shore as the Cascadia subduction zone fault zone does, the Juan de Fuca fault zone is just as dangerous as the Cascadia. The Juan de Fuca fault zone is a zigzag fault zone. That zigzag fault zone comes down here to the south, where it says the Pacific Plate there. There's a plate there called the Blanco Fracture Zone. That is that line, that perpendicular line running from the northwest to the southeast. That's called the Blanco Fracture Zone. The Blanco Fracture Zone primarily associates itself with those earthquakes that hit in that area with Oregon. Now, the Juan de Fuca Fault also has had earthquakes in the territory of Oregon as well, out to sea. But the Juan de Fuca Fault Zone is primarily, will have earthquakes up around the Washington State area, off the coast. Now, down to the south, the Blanco Fracture Zone connects with the northeastern part of the Gorda Plate. The northeastern part of the Gorda Plate. Okay? Then that fault zone runs from the northeast to the southwest. It connects over in California, off the coast of California, with what they call the Gorda Escarpment. The Gorda Escarpment. Now, this possibly is not the good image I want to show you. Stand by for that. I'm going to see if I can bring another image up here to show you, that will show you exactly what's going on with the Cascadia subduction zone. I need to have you understand what's going on with the entire fault zone. The entire fault zone is what we have to worry about. Okay? Just bear with me for a second here. I know I've got it. We've talked a lot about the Cascadia subduction zone area and a lot about the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. I want everybody to understand what's happening. It's absolutely essential that you know what's going on. I think I found my map. Okay, this is that map. Now, you notice one thing here. The Juan de Fuca Ridge, or the Juan de Fuca Plate, goes all the way north up into the Queen Charlotte Island, which you don't see on this particular map either, as well as the Cascadia subduction zone fault zone. But this map here also shows you the Blanco Fracture Zone, the Gorda Ridge, Gorda Plate area. It also shows you the other plate called the Gorda Escarpment. It shows up here as the Mendocino Fracture Zone. The Mendocino Fracture Zone. The Mendocino Fracture Zone or the Gorda Escarpment run over to the landmass in Northern California. That is where another fault zone kicks in, the San Andreas Fault. The area where the Gorda Escarpment and the Cascadia subduction zone and the San Andreas Fault meet is called the Triple Junction. In this particular picture, it does not show the three faults meeting, but the Cascadia subduction zone does meet with the Gorda Escarpment and the San Andreas Fault. And our discussion here is very important tonight because you need to know that the Cascadia subduction zone does meet up with the Gorda Escarpment and also the San Andreas Fault. When we have the Cascadia megathrust earthquake, it will trigger the San Andreas Fault. I promise you it will trigger the San Andreas Fault. What happens? We're going to have a 9.0, 10.0 earthquake just off the coast of Seattle, Washington. Off the coast of Seattle, Washington, up around the Cascadia subduction zone and the Juan de Fuca plate. That is where the earthquake is going to start. That earthquake is going to be felt all the way up into Alaska and all the way down to northern Mexico. The entire coastline is going to feel the remnants of that earthquake, as well as the entire continent of North America. That earthquake is going to be so large that it's going to shake the entire continent, Canada and the United States. Make no mistake about what's going to happen. The entire countries are going to be feeling shock waves when that earthquake hits. Okay? It's going to happen. And that earthquake could also set off the volcanoes. I believe either Glacier Peak, Mount Rainier, and or Mount St. Helens. As we've told the story before, back in January 26, 1700, there was a mariner out to sea. In his ship's log, he mentioned that he thought that either Glacier Peak or Mount Rainier were erupting. And since then, that story has been altered to include Mount St. Helens. I showed you last week that Glacier Peak was shaking. A lot of earthquakes, even up to a 3.2, 3.3 earthquake hitting Glacier Peak last week. That is the most activity we've ever seen at Glacier Peak. In the 5.5 years I've been doing this program, that was the most activity we've ever seen at Glacier Peak. But Mount Rainier has been shaking as well, and it has been shaking a lot. We've seen 3.0, 3.5 earthquakes hitting at Mount Rainier and also Mount St. Helens. This past week, and I talked to you about this last week, this past week, Mount St. Helens almost got a yellow advisory. Mount St. Helens almost got a yellow advisory because there were so many earthquakes hitting Mount St. Helens. 126 earthquakes hit Mount St. Helens within a 36-hour period. They thought Mount St. Helens was ready to erupt again. It did not erupt. Seismic activity at Mount St. Helens has calmed down a little bit. Not by much, but a little bit. Okay? Anyway. Heidi Petrick says her phone is having a hissy fit. I'm sorry, Heidi. She says mirror her phone. Unreal. Anyway, there are a lot of earthquakes hitting. Okay? I don't want to make it seem like it's not happening. It is. Okay? But Mount St. Helens is not erupting yet. Now, the large-scale earthquakes and tsunamis that have historically affected the western regions of the United States and Canada are still likely to do so in the future. Off the southern coast of British Columbia, there's a 600-mile-long strip that exists where the Pacific Ocean and the old Pacific Ocean floor gradually subduct eastward beneath the North American continent. Okay? There's a 600-mile-long strip from the coast of British Columbia, Canada. We're talking Vancouver, British Columbia, maybe even up to the Queen Charlotte area that's part of the subduction zone. But a 600-mile-long strip exists where the Pacific floor, the ocean floor, goes underneath the North American continent. And not just the Pacific Ocean floor. We're talking about the Cascadia subduction zone, that earthquake fault. This area is called the Cascadia subduction zone. It's hosted megathrust earthquakes for years and years and years, thousands of years. That area is a place where tectonic plates move against each other in a very highly dangerous way. The plates can periodically lock up as they are today. And those plates lock up and they release stress when they finally lurch against each other. The result of these plates locking up and then subsequently releasing the greatest energy result in the world's greatest earthquakes, mega thrust earthquakes, shaking both the seabed and the landmass and generating tsunamis 100 feet or higher. Such a fault off of Japan caused the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster. Similar subduction zones exist off of Alaska, Chile, and New Zealand, and even Australia, among other places. At Cascadia, biggest quakes are believed to come roughly every 500 years, give or take a couple hundred. The last Cascadia earthquake happened in 1700, January 26, 1700. Scientists have long been working to understand the Cascadia subduction zone's subterranean structures and the mechanics of the subduction zone. Christine just upgraded her membership in the EMA to the highest level, level 3. Thank you, Christine. We appreciate that. That helps us a great deal. Thank you so much. God bless you for that. But like I said, the scientists have been long working to understand the Cascadia subduction zone. Let's take down this map and bring up the other map again. Right there. I want to talk now about the structures within the Cascadia subduction zone. There are basically 4 different structures. This is where I get into explain what these colors mean. Okay? The subduction zones delineate places most susceptible to quakes. Most of those around Washington and Oregon, and how big those earthquakes are going to be, and what warning signs that they might produce to give us even a small heads up about what might happen. There is no such thing as predicting earthquakes by these scientists. That's what they say. They said there's no way that they can be predicted. I believe they can be forecast. I believe these earthquakes can be forecast, and we've been doing it with good regularity for quite a while. The scientists say there's no predicting an earthquake. I come back and say they're full of beans. Okay? But rather, scientists are trying to forecast the possibilities of multiple scenarios. Multiple scenarios that could happen off the Cascadia subduction zone. Now, the scientists are helping to help authorities design building codes and warning systems to help minimize damage when something does happen. As of the last 5 to 7 years, they've designed an earthquake warning system that goes off on people's phones, people's cell phones. It gives them only about 3 seconds warning. In a couple of cases recently, it gave no warning at all because the earthquake started shaking before the cell phone even got the message. So the warning systems are not foolproof at all. Now, a newly published study promises to greatly advance this effort. There was a research ship that was towed out a vast array of geophysical instruments behind the ship. Geophysical instruments called seismographs. They pulled the seismographs and other instruments out to sea. Why? Because, folks, what happened with these instruments is they threw sound waves off the ocean floor. The sound waves bounced off the ocean floor and back to the ship. So scientists can see what the ocean floor looked like and what's going on with the fault zone. They toured the entire fault zone, and they then produced the first comprehensive study of the many complex structures beneath the seafloor. These include geometry of the down-going ocean plate, the ocean plate that subducts underneath the North American continent. Part of the Cascadia subduction zone subducts underneath the American continent out to sea. Part of that is showing the subduction zone going underneath the North American continent while it's still out to sea. Okay? I didn't know that before now. I surmised that was probably the case, but now it's a fact. Okay? That study was recently published in the Journal of Science Advances. In the Journal of Science Advances. Now there's something called decollement. Decollement. Now I'm going to bring this up a little bit so you can see that word here. You see the entire fault zone here, going all the way down the coast into Northern California. Now I'm going to increase the size of this so you can read the information with this picture. I think it's very important that you know and understand what is actually going on. The subsea floor map of the Cascadia subduction zone is showing depth of the fault between the eastward moving Juan de Fuca plate and the North American plate. The yellow-orange indicates shallow depths. The yellow-orange indicates shallow depths. The green lines here you see indicate deeper. The blue-purple lines are the deepest. The blue-purple lines nearest the coast are the deepest areas of the ocean there. That is very different than what I even thought. I thought the most shallow depths were closer to the landmass. The diagonal black lines here, approximate divisions between different segments of the Cascadia subduction zone. The wavy line here, the wavy red line here indicates the seaward edge of the rigid continental rocks. The rigid continental rocks. Okay? The rigid continental rocks, folks, is where the Cascadia subduction zone is. Under the sea. Under the sea. The deformed craton. The deformed craton we mentioned before. Deformed craton. The edge of the plate. Okay? This is where the rigid continental rocks that apparently cause the zone to break. Causes the zone to break. We did not have this information until just recently. I just found it. One of our followers sent me the information and I studied it. Now I'm making sure you know about it. That's why you're seeing this. Okay? Let me reduce this in size a little bit so you can still see the entire picture here. The entire picture is very important. That's why I'm showing it to you. The Cascadia subduction zone goes all the way down to Northern California. Okay? So now you kind of see what I'm talking about. Now, I do have another map here that I want to bring up here. It's this map here. Let me take my mug down. Let me take my banner down, and let me take this other map down that I just put up. This is the North American craton. Notice where it says a deformed craton. The deformed craton is where the rocks are. They're deformed. The rocks where the plate has the subduction zone has gone under the North American continent and has made the mountains. Mountain building. The Rocky Mountains here. That's what you're seeing here. Now you're also seeing something else here as well. Oh, darn it. When I put this map up here, I thought it was going to show more than it does. The greenish area here is the accretionary fault zone. The accretionary fault zone. Okay, this is where the fault zone happens right on land here, where the Cascadia subduction zone is going underneath the American continent. When we got this map here, that's where we thought it went underneath the North American continent. Now scientists are saying it may go underneath the North American continent well before it reaches land. Well before the Cascadia subduction zone goes underneath land. Okay? Underneath the landmass. It goes underneath the North American continent while it's still out at sea. Okay? That's why this is important. This is exactly why this is important. The subduction zone goes underneath the North American continent before it even reaches land. Now, let me put up my mug here again. And let me put up this other image that I want to show you here. I want to try to explain this so you understand it better. This is important. I think it's very important. This word decollement, D-E-C-O-L-L-E-M-E-N-T. Decollement is a gliding plane between two rock masses. Between two rock masses. Also known as a basal detachment fault. A basal detachment fault. That is the Cascadia subduction zone. A basal detachment fault. Okay? The decollement is a gliding plane between the two rock masses. Between the two rock masses. In this case, the two rock masses are the subduction zone and the North American plate. And it moves. That moves. That sliding plane moves. Okay? Decollements are deformational structures. Deformational structures that result in independent styles of deformation. Movement. Movement. Movement where rock moves upward and rock moves downward when it subducts. Deformation is the action or the process of changing shapes. Changing shapes. Meaning when the subduction zone goes underneath the North American plate, sometimes it results in the plane rising up. Mountain building. Deformation. Mountain building. Changing the shape of the land and deforming it. Distorting it. Distorting it. Especially through the application of pressure. Especially through the application of pressure. Now, let me just stop here for just a second. It was once thought that the Cascadia subduction zone takes a deep dive beneath the North American continent like this and heads to the core of the Earth. That is still true to a certain extent. It takes a deep dive. Hold on a second, guys. I think I may need to go answer the door. It doesn't sound like Carol is here. She may be been gone off with a friend. Just a second, I'll be right back. Get that. Be quiet. Okay guys, I'm back. Sorry about that. Apparently I dropped some mail and one of my neighbors picked it up. And I'm glad she got it because one of them was a bill that I need to have. Yeah, I just had to take just a short break here. Anyway, they have found that the Cascadia subduction zone has 4 segments. 4 segments. Now that deformation as that plate goes underneath the North American continent can cause deformation. It can cause uplift in the plate, which is called mountain building. We saw it in the Olympia area with Mount Olympus there. We've seen it over further east over where the volcanoes are. You cannot have subduction and not have volcanoes, and you cannot have volcanoes without subduction. That causes that. The subduction also causes magma to push up. It causes a magma within the crust of the earth to push up as well, causing the volcanoes, causing lava to come out of the volcanoes. Okay? Now, this deformation that we're talking about, solid rock moving, undergoing slow deformation. The plate moves millimeters a year. The plate moves millimeters a year. The megathrust has much more complex geometry than scientists even previously assumed. This new study that they put out provides a new framework for earthquakes and tsunami hazard assessment. Provides a new framework for understanding the Cascadia megathrust earthquake and also tsunami hazard assessment. Yes, the Cascadia megathrust earthquake will cause a tsunami, and I'll talk more about that in a second. Now, this funding was made possible by the U.S. National Science Foundation. The data was gathered during a 41-day cruise of that ship that I told you about, pulling those seismic instruments behind it. Researchers aboard that ship penetrated the seafloor with powerful sound pulses. powerful sound pulses. And they read those echoes off the pulse machines, which were then converted into images. Somewhat similar to how physicians can do interior body scans with CAT scans and what's that other one? There's a CAT scan and then there's another scan as well. That's similar. They use sound waves to penetrate the body. One key finding with this megathrust fault zone is not just one continuous structure. They believe that the Cascadia subduction zone was one continuous structure. It's not. Just like they found that the Wasatch Fault has 7 segments. The Cascadia subduction zone has 4 segments. And any one segment can cause a Cascadia megathrust earthquake in that area. Or the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake involving all 4 segments going all the way down, triggering the San Andreas Fault to the south. Triggering the San Andreas Fault, causing earthquakes to go all the way down northern Mexico. And even though one fault may go, even though one segment of the fault could go, could also trigger the Cascadia or trigger the San Andreas Fault, depending on the strength of the quake. Depending on the strength of the quake. Scientists have long debated whether past events, including the Cascadia megathrust earthquake that happened, like I said, January 26, 1700, whether it ruptured the entire zone or just part of it. That is now the key question. They don't know what happened back in 1700. Was it the entire fault, all 4 segments, or just one? Because the longer rupture, the bigger the quake. The longer rupture, the bigger the quake. The data shows that the segments are divided by buried features, such as including big faults. The data shows that each one of the segments of the Cascadia subduction zone are divided by buried features, including big faults. Big faults. Now, let me take down this map real quick. I want to show you the USGS earthquake map. Showing you the USGS earthquake map may give you a better understanding of what we're talking about here. Yes, you're seeing the United States here. I want to specifically go up right now and show you the fault zone. Look at this. Look at all the other ancillary faults coming off the Cascadia subduction zone. These faults are literally everywhere. Ancillary fault zones. Look at that. That's what we're talking about here. Okay? Now these other big faults is where opposing sides slide against each other. Each fault slides up against the other one. One fault zone called the San Andreas Fault is where the 2 sides of the fault move like this, called the strike-slip fault. A fault zone moving against each other just like this. The Cascadia fault zone goes down like this. It goes underneath the North American plate. It's going underneath. What is holding the plate together right now, or the 2 plates together, is biological material, sand, dirt, and other stuff. Now, when that biological material, sand, dirt, rock, biological material, dead plant life and such at the bottom of the ocean, like I said, when that happens and those things get heated up, it produces an oily, greasy substance and allows the plates to more easily move like this. That is what is holding the plates together. All that dirt, all that rock, that sand, that biological material heats up and turns into an oily, greasy substance, and that's where we have the earthquake. That is when we have the earthquake. Yes, Aubrey says the PET scan, yes. I had a PET scan just about 3 years ago. I appreciate that, Aubrey. Thank you. Anyway, this is what we're talking about. Okay? When we have the solar flares, when we have planetary alignments, the planetary alignments cause electromagnetic radiation. The planetary alignments cause electromagnetic radiation, and that magnetic radiation penetrates the atmosphere and goes right down to the fault zones and the plates. It heats up the plates, causing Earth to move. It heats up the earthquake faults, causing Earth to move that way too. The solar radiation that we're seeing right now coming from the sunspots on the sun cause the same thing. Mark Wages last week talked about a solar wave, a plasma wave leaving the sun, a huge plasma wave, radiation wave leaving the sun. It did hit the Earth. It did hit the Earth. We saw earthquakes, guys. We've seen it. We've seen it. Even today we saw a good-sized earthquake down on the Antarctic Ridge, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. We saw a big earthquake happen on the Antarctic Ridge in the Pacific today. That is going to continue to happen. As that solar radiation, that plasma radiation comes from the sun, it heats up the plates, heats up all that biological material, causing the plates to move more freely. That's what's going on. That's what's going on. Janet's asking here in the chat, when will it stop? It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop, guys. It's going to continue. The plasma radiation is not going to stop for a while, if ever. Right now we are in what they call a solar maximum. A solar maximum. That solar maximum, guys, is allowing the sun to put out sunspots and the sunspots to erupt. The sunspots on the sun are erupting plasma radiation going out into space. That plasma radiation comes from the sun, and when it hits the Earth, it goes like this. It hits the Earth just like this. And in one case, this past weekend, when we had that huge eruption from the sun, it literally, the plasma radiation literally enveloped the Earth like this, completely covered it. Completely covered the Earth, all parts of the Earth. That's why you saw auroras in all different places. That's why you saw disruption in communications around the world. That's what happens. That's what happens. And that's why we've had some good-sized earthquakes as of late. A lot of earthquakes as of late. It's too bad the USGS is not showing them on the map. USGS is doing a big disservice to everybody around the world, not just the citizens of the United States. USGS is not showing any earthquakes in Europe. Any. Yes, they're showing one earthquake over in Greece. That was yesterday. They're showing one earthquake today in Europe. That's it. They're showing one earthquake in Iran. That's it. It's a bunch of crap. It is. It's a bunch of crap. In order for me to show you earthquakes, I have to use my other device, because it's not on the internet, per se. Okay? USGS will never admit what they're doing. Ever. Ever. The United States Geological Survey used to be the preeminent seismic agency all over the world. They're not. They think they are. They think they're the best. They think they're the only thing going. They're not. Other agencies chip in with what they have as information. And they put out good information. They put out good information that USGS doesn't even do. EMSC puts out 90% of the information that USGS does not. That's why I show you what happened in Central America today and what happened in Mexico today. Okay? Anyway, Getting back to my discussion about Cascadia here. All this solar radiation that's coming from the sun is enveloping the Earth right now. This is what's going on right now. Okay? The plates are sliding underneath each other. The plates are subducting just like this. One of the biggest subduction areas is down in the southwestern part of the Pacific Ocean. Taiwan, Indonesia, the Philippines, Tonga, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, the Legacy Islands, and New Zealand and Australia. That is the largest subduction zone in the world. And we're seeing a lot of movement now. And we're going to continue to see a lot of movement there. That's because we've seen so many solar eruptions lately that it is heating up the plates, allowing the plates to move more freely. That's why. Now, there are 4 different segments that comprise the Cascadia subduction zone. 4 different movements here. 4 different segments. And then we have those ancillary faults that also figure into the whole thing here. Ancillary faults. Now, let me move this over a bit because I want to show you what is going on here. Okay, now you see the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. You also see the Juan de Fuca fault. Let me move this down a little bit here. Now you can see the Queen Charlotte Island where the Cascadia subduction zone and the Juan de Fuca fault touch Queen Charlotte Island. Yes, we have a lot of earthquakes here. And in fact, there are a couple, 3 earthquakes over at Queen Charlotte Island the USGS is not showing. That's a shame. It's a crying shame. There are more earthquakes than they're showing here on the USGS map. Now, this earthquake right here, I just lit up here. This is Rockaway Beach in Oregon. Rockaway Beach in Oregon. This is a 1.2 tremor here. 1.2 tremor here. Sometimes I have to enlarge the map to show earthquakes here. This is Lincoln Beach, Oregon. Lincoln Beach, Oregon. Now this is not an explosion like USGS is showing it to be. Anytime where you see one of these diamond shapes, the USGS says it's an explosion. It's not an explosion. Unless it's a forested area and we have spontaneous combustus carnivorous, an exploding tree. That did not happen. Demon Catman here in the chat says, how many spontaneous combustion carnivorous can we have? I agree. This was not one of those spontaneous combustus carnivorous. This was in a forested area. This was a tremor, not an explosion. There was no explosion at all. Now, I've done research. Every time I see one of these stupid signs the USGS puts up, I look for a possible quarry. I start looking for a possible quarry. Right here to the east, this is not a quarry per se. Yes, there is a quarry here. There is a quarry here, but right here we have a volcano. We have a volcano here. Look at the vents here of this volcano. This is a volcano. Up to the side of it, just northeast of that volcano, and I think it's all part of the volcano at all. It's all part of a volcano. However, up to the northeast here is the quarry where they've been harvesting rock. Now, they are not blowing up the forest here. I have not heard or seen any reference to an explosion here. So this 0.7 supposed explosion the USGS is telling us is not an explosion. It's a tremor. It is a tremor, guys. Okay? It's all part of the Cascadia subduction zone process. The process. See the mountain here? See the mountain area here? This is the deformation. This is the deformation we're talking about. The subduction zone goes underneath the North American continent, causing deformation, causing the land to rise, causing mountain building. Richest YouTube channel here on the chat says that's his beach. Lincoln Beach, Oregon. I like to say it's my beach, but I've never been there to surf. I used to be a surfer when I was in San Diego. I used to love going surfing. But I want to show what's going on. This is important to understand. This is very important to understand what's going on. Further east, you see these volcanoes. Again, you cannot have a volcano without subduction. You can't have subduction without a volcano. They go hand in hand. They're synonymous with each other. They're synonymous with each other. And as you can see, the USGS is saying that there's activity at Mount Rainier, but not Mount St. Helens. That's not possible. Mount St. Helens is having earthquakes today as well. Even though the BS says we have a 0.2 microquake here at Mount Rainier, this microquake is 1/4 mile deep. This earthquake here is a 1.1 tremor. They say it is another event. They say it is another event. Okay? It's 1 mile deep. That 1.1 tremor is 1 mile deep inside the volcano. I don't know why USGS is saying it is another event. Apparently they want to differentiate between something that's volcanic and what might be an explosion. It is not an explosion. It is not another event. It is magma in the volcano that's causing rock fracturing. Magma entering the volcano, entering the volcanic chamber under pressure, causing rock fracturing. That's what happens. That is exactly what happens. This other event right here, out west of Mount Rainier, Adler, Washington, they're saying it's an explosion out here. It's not. This is 12 kilometers southwest of Adler, Washington, supposedly. This is a tremor here. This is a 1.4 tremor here in the mountain range here, in a forested area. It is not an explosion. I don't know why USGS has to call everything an explosion. It's not. That's just another tremor here in the mountain range just west of Mount St. Helens, or Mount Rainier. Okay? USGS is absolutely insane. They've got another one up here just north of Mount Rainier here. They say this is near Enumclaw, Washington. East-southeast of Enumclaw, Washington. It's half mile deep. This somewhat explosion, or so-called explosion, is a half mile deep. And yes, there have been explosions at quarries that are half mile to 5 miles deep. There have been explosions at quarries a half mile to 5 miles deep. And yes, this does look like it's in a quarry, but it's not an explosion. It would be a quarry blast. This would have been a quarry blast, not an explosion. So again, USGS is again wrong. They're full of beans. They're full of beans, whatever they've eaten. That's how I look at it. Up north here, another earthquake here. This is near Falls City, Washington. We've seen a lot of earthquakes here in the past here at Falls City, Washington. This is a 1.1 tremor. This is 7 miles deep. 14.3 kilometers deep, 7 miles deep. This one over here on the other side of the Puget Sound area, this is a 0.7 microquake. This is also 13 miles deep. Okay? Supposed microquake. Again, the Cascadia area is very, very, very active. That's because we're gearing up to have a major earthquake here. We're gearing up to have a major earthquake. This earthquake right here is near Glacier Peak. This is a 1.6 tremor here near Glacier Peak, Washington. Okay? By the way, this is a quarter of a mile deep. Incredible. Incredible. So I just showed you what's going on in Washington State and over in Oregon as well. Again, USGS is not always right, as I pointed out. I try to show you what's going on because I believe you need to know. I believe you need to know. This study that I found that I'm talking to you about has a lot of truth in it. It has a lot of truth. What the scientists are though saying to us is they can't say what definitely means only single segments could rupture. They can't even define what they mean by single segments of the fault rupturing, or that the whole thing will go at once. Even though they've done the study, even though they dragged that ship out to sea for about 30 days, dragging instruments over the sea floor, echoing sound waves of the sea floor. They know the segment. They know the Cascadia subduction zone has segments, but they don't understand it. They don't understand it. It has segments. Yes, they believe one segment could rupture and none of the others. That's possible, but they don't understand it. The imagery that they have gotten suggests that the causes of the segmentation, the 4 different segments, the causes of the segmentation is the rigid edge of the overriding North American plate. Meaning, as the Cascadia subduction zone goes underneath the North American plate, the plate separates. Not the North American plate, but the Cascadia subduction zone plate separates, causing the different segments. That's what they believe. They don't know for sure, but that's what they believe. Okay? The North American continent is comprised of many different kinds of rocks, as we know it is. Sandstone by the beach, where great pressures push that sandstone together and cause a sandstone, a great big sand rock, where the parts of the sand are so compressed together that it becomes one solid rock. Okay? Or it might be granite caused by volcanic action. As the lava cools, it becomes either granite or regular lava rock, or obsidian, dacite or basaltic lava. Rock formed at different times over tens of millions of years, with some being denser than others, some rock being denser than others, including that wonderful rock that has very, very fine pieces of the rock. It's a very light volcanic rock with all kinds of holes in it. All kinds of holes in it. Very light lava rock. I even had a piece of it one time. Different kinds of rock. And I know you know what I'm talking about. I've got a full rock collection. All kinds of rock come in contact with the subduction zone. And the subduction zone has its own rock. And the subduction zone comes in contact with the North American plate, and the North American plate has denser rock causing the segmentation of the subduction zone, the division of the subduction zone. That's what they're talking about here. Okay? This variety in the continental rocks causes the incoming, more pliable Cascadia subduction zone oceanic plate to bend and twist, and to accommodate the difference in overlying pressure of the North American plate. In some places, the segments themselves go down at relatively steep angles. Goes underneath the North American plate like this, going straight down deep into the core of the Earth. Others are very shallow. Other rock is very shallow and goes underneath the North American plate like this. Okay? That's what they're talking about. Segments going underneath the North American plate. The Vancouver, Washington segment is quite smooth. That means it may be more likely to rupture along the entire length at once. That may be why the majority of that pressure caused such a huge earthquake back in 1700. And why we've even seen 5.8s, 5.9s, and 6.9 earthquakes to happen in the Vancouver, Washington area. And upwards over into Seattle as well. Seattle, Tacoma area as well. If that's the case, if that one section of the Cascadia subduction zone is so smooth and is going underneath the North American plate like this, it's moving, and it may move very fast. And if that's the case, we may see a major earthquake happening just around the area of the Puget Sound and Vancouver, Oregon area. Vancouver, Washington, Oregon area. Okay, it can happen. And it will make it a very dangerous segment of the Cascadia subduction zone. But they don't know. That one segment is the seafloor subducting underneath the continental crust at a very shallow angle, like this, relatively to the other segments that may go deep diving into the core. They don't know. They don't know. The most earthquake-prone interface between the plates lies offshore. Here they found that the study had the shallow subduction angle, meaning it probably extends directly under Washington's Olympic Peninsula, like this. Very shallow subduction angle. This might magnify any shaking on land, because they think that the shallow subduction may cause greater interference with the upper landmass, causing more shaking. They say it's going to require a lot more study, but for places like Tacoma and Seattle, it could mean the difference between alarming and catastrophic shaking. Now, they say the tsunami risk is still a work in progress. The tsunami will happen. The tsunami will happen as a result of the subduction. We know it will. We've seen it happen over in Japan back in 2011. We've seen tsunamis happen before. The 1700 earthquake in Washington caused a tsunami over in Japan. A tsunami occurs when the deep seafloor moves up or down during a quake, sending a wave to the surface that concentrates its energy and gathers height as it reaches shallower coastal waters, causing a huge wave to hit the shoreline. That huge wave could be at least 100 feet to 150 feet tall. Scientists and all of us are working on preparedness assessments. We are all working on preparedness assessments. Those preparedness assessments done by the scientists and the building inspectors and each individual city and county may be published within the next year. There is a whole lot more complexity here than we even see. There's a whole lot more complexity than this. It's unreal. It's unreal. Now, if we are being buffered, which you guys say we are, it's because YouTube doesn't like us talking about this, which is sad. It's sad. YouTube doesn't like the truth. YouTube just plain doesn't like the truth. Anyway, I want to move over here and show you more of the earthquakes that have happened. Then I'm going to go over and show you earthquakes in California. I'm going to show you seismograms. Demon Catman says it must be my end, and even I'm being buffered now. I'm seeing buffering on my monitor here, and now it just took off, and the buffering starts again. A 5-second window signal interruption. Arnold's talking about here. Demon Catman over in England says he's getting a lot more than 5 seconds. And I'm seeing more buffering again and again. It happens off and on here. It's incredible because I have a very high-speed internet signal. We should not be buffered at all. We should not be buffering at all. And in fact, I'm seeing my CPU usage very low, which means we should not be buffered at all. That means this is coming from YouTube. That's wild. Yes, we are getting buffered hard here. Dadgum them. Dad frickin' gum it. I hate it when they do that. I really do. I hate it. They should not be buffering this at all. That is so sad. That is so sad. Before it gets any worse and they may knock us off the air, I want to talk about this. This is a large earthquake down here on the Antarctica Ridge. The other day I was being accused that we never talk about what's going on down here in the Antarctic. Guess what we do? We talk about it very often whenever we see activity here. Today we're seeing a 5.1 earthquake down here on the southern Pacific on Antarctica Ridge. A 5.1 earthquake, 10 kilometers deep, 6.2 miles deep. 5.1 large earthquake down here on the Antarctic Ridge.